Hi, I'm Amanda Ralph, a nurse practitioner and the owner and founder of White Coat Aesthetics here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, today we are going to talk about Botox. Let's go into it with our series of talking about products that we carry here. Botox, of course, being one of the products. And I am showing you here two different versions of Botox. In the state of Nevada, if you are not familiar, we have a 50-unit vial rule where vials are single use, so we cannot break them up between clients. So I have both 50 and 100 because, of course, I have a lot of clients that we do a full 100 units. What is Botox? How does it work? What does it do? What does a unit even mean? Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about Botox. Botox is a botulinum toxin, of course. It is botulinum toxin subtype type A. It is a purified protein that we inject into muscles to relax muscle movement. So essentially, it is a temporary paralytic agent for muscles. How does it work? We inject it specifically into muscles that are creating wrinkles. So, works best in the upper face typically, in between the eyebrows, across the forehead, around the eyes. We can absolutely use it for areas in the lower face, but I have clients all the time say to me, can we do a little Botox here? And I have to explain, Botox does not relax that area because this is a volume issue rather than just a muscle issue. And Botox only works by relaxing muscles for wrinkle formation. It does do a couple other small things. It does help, suppress sweat gland, which helps you stop sweating. So we can use it for hyperhidrosis, and it can have therapeutic effects as well as cosmetic effects, okay? So we know that it helps in the treatment of migraines, things of that nature. But of course, today I'm just talking about cosmetics. Botox is typically injected, like I said, upper face. We can also use it in areas for the lower face. In general, we inject the product. You see no effect that day. You go home, you wait a few days, can take anywhere from 3 to 5 days to start kicking in. And then I usually have all my clients wait a full 2 weeks to see the full results before we determine if we need any sort of little touch up. With that, we start the appointment by assessing the areas of the face that you're wanting it. So I will have my patient frown, I'll have them raise their eyebrows, I'll have them smile, and then we kind of discuss the areas that we are interested in receiving the Botox. We do dose based on the size of the muscle and the longevity we want. The amount of units we use in an area is going to help it last. So dose equals duration. The amount of units we place in an area is how long it will stay frozen or paralyzed or relaxed, depending on what word you want to use. So if I'm doing mostly upper face, 50 units is enough. If I'm doing full face and neck, I need the 100, if not more. Really depends. Masseters take about 50 units. Different area of the face are dosed differently. And we can go into a whole discussion on dosing at a future date, but I don't think I want to bore you guys with that. The goal is to get about 3 to 4 months out of Botox. And typically the first 2 months are a lot more, frozen feeling, a lot stronger of the relaxation. And then it kind of slowly teeters off until that final month. I have people that will come to me at 2 months and say, it's all back, but then I will look at the actual movement compared to the picture I took the first time, and they still have some Botox working. It really is best to wait the full 90 days before retreating. And I usually recommend pushing it as long as you possibly can to get your money's worth out of it. One thing I want to talk about is reconstitution of Botox and how that works. Botox comes, I will show you here. Botox comes in a freeze-dried kind of powder. So right now this is an empty Botox vial, and all that we have on the very bottom is this little freeze-dried powder. We add bacteriostatic normal saline to it to then inject the treatment. What I will say is this is kind of an injector preference. There is an FDA approved amount that you can use in the vial of Botox, which for 50 units is 1.25, for the 100 units is 2.5 mils of the bacteriostatic saline. But everyone kind of has their own reconstitution method that they have learned. I was initially trained on a 1-to-1 method, which would be 0.5 cc's of normal bacteriostatic normal saline into the 50 units, or 1 mil into the 100 units, which makes each tick of an insulin syringe 1 unit of the Botox. Let's talk about the units though. In general, regardless of how much bacteriostatic saline you put, This is a 50 unit vial. So if they do 2 cc's of fluid, if they do 1 cc of fluid, 0.5 cc, the entire vial itself is still 50. And so how it works is that you then divide over the amount of saline you put in there to get your 50 units or to get your 100 units. For my new injectors, I really recommend downloading this app. It is called NJECT, NJECT. What you do with that is you go in, you put how much fluid you're putting in there and the exact syringe you're using, and it will show you how many units are in X amount of ticks for what you're placing. Benefits to putting more solution in there or bacteriostatic saline is that the product will spread further. It's also easier to push on the actual syringe because you can put more product in. The downside to that is that you're going to have more of a bleb at each injection site. So sometimes I tend to do a little bit less fluid so that it's not as much fluid going into the area. There are certain areas that do better with a higher reconstitution and certain areas that do better with a tighter reconstitution or less fluid. So the forehead is an area that's really great to use a higher concentration of fluid because the more spread we get means we're covering more of the area of the frontalis muscle. It also means less pokes because if it spreads more, you're not having to poke quite as often. But in areas here like the glabella, where if fluid travels, you have a higher risk of hitting an eyelid ptosis, where the eyelid gets relaxed and there's really nothing you can do except for wait for that to improve. That's an area where you want a tighter reconstitution and less spread of the product. You can play around with this, and this really does come down a lot to injector preference. For my new students, I tend to recommend starting with one way and using that consistently for honestly a good amount of time. I would say a year of consistent injecting so that you get your reconstitution really down and easy. Now that I'm more experienced, I do play around a little bit more with reconstitution methods, but I have a lot more experience. I'm a lot more confident in my injecting skills. So yes, 3 to 4 months out of longevity of Botox. If you're going to someone you trust, they will recommend the areas that you should be treating. Things to note with Botox, general risks, your highest likelihood of a risk is going to be bruising. So bruising is a possibility. It's not super common, but it can happen. You may feel a headache the same day. There's really nothing to worry about that. I usually tell my clients if you want to take Tylenol, you can. Unlikely risks are going to be that eyelid ptosis, for like an eyebrow ptosis where your eyebrows are too heavy. I tend to start pretty conservative when I first inject, and then if you need to come back to me, I have an understanding of where I can go with that. The most important part of getting Botox done is trusting your injector and going to someone who really knows what they're doing so that you know that your results are going to be good and consistent.